Okay. So Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us in this Sunday class. So we will, temporarily just do the Zoom classes until sometime in the future where, we can start rotating the classes in our houses, or in some other premises. So for the time being, let's just, continue with our Zoom class. So today we hope to get into Canto number 3 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In total, there are 12 cantos, as all of you will know. And we had sort of completed Canto number 2. You will realize that we did not go really deep into the first 2 cantos because these were already completed by the students who had been coming to the Srinaran temple. Even Canto number 3 up to chapter number 12 or 10 or 12 have already been completed. So today we'll get into Canto number 3, but before that, let's do our Mangala Charan and a little bhajan. So this is an amazing bhajan which was composed by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, His Divine Grace Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He is the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada's father. Okay. So he, in this composition, the meaning of the bhajan is Krishna is the divine lover of Radha, his eternal consort, and he displays loving pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He's the divine lover of the gopis and the holder of the great hill named Govardhan. Although unborn or Aja, he plays the role of the beloved son of Mother Yashoda. He's the delighter of the inhabitants of Vraja, and he wanders in the forests along the banks of river Yamuna. So Srila Prabhupada, before the start of any Srimad Bhagavatam class or Bhagavad Gita class, or even for that matter, the Chaitanya Charitamrita class, or any class which Srila Prabhupada would deliver, he would always sing this song. And there are times when, he gets into a trance-like situation while he's singing this, and then he'll be just silent for some time, and when he comes out of this, he does tell his disciples, just chant Hare Krishna. Okay, so that's the context to the singing of this very nice bhajan. In fact, Jagjit Singh had popularized this in the 1980s, where he and his wife, Chitra Singh, they had actually sang this as an offering to the opening of the Juhu temple, right? So the Juhu temple was already opened in the late 1970s, but then they needed some funds, etc., and therefore the devotees had approached Jagjit and Chitra, as well as Anup Jalota and some of the other personalities, and then they actually composed a number of albums, and whatever funds was received out of the selling of the albums, all of that went to the temple. So that was their contribution. So let's sing together. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari,
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari,
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari,
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari,
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 Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana,
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana,
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yamunatira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamunatira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishvabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhaye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraya. Nasta prayashta abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtuki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Okay, thank you very much. So in the last class, we had actually discussed a synopsis of the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. I went through this very, very quickly. Does anyone remember what are the 10 topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Okay, maybe before that, what are the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita? Maybe all of you can mute yourselves, and then if you'd like to answer, you can just unmute and just answer. Okay?
Ishwar.
Very good. Next one. Anybody else? There are 5 topics of the Bhagavad Gita.
Jiva Prabhuji.
Wonderful. Jiva. Yes. All right. So the individual soul, and then Sri Krishna or Ishvara. What else?
Prakriti.
Karma.
Wonderful. Karma. Yes. Prakriti. Nature. Yes. What else? The last one.
Time Prabhu.
Exactly. Kala or time. Wonderful. Okay. So these are the 5 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavad Gita. For Bhagavatam, there are 10 topics which the Bhagavatam dwells into. Right? And these 10 topics are actually interspersed within every of the 12 cantos. But the first 2 cantos, they are primarily focused on the first canto being on the adhikar. Adhikar meaning, what is the right to receiving this knowledge, right? So the first canto is about adhikar. So if you look at Uttara, if you look at Queen Kunti, if you look at Bhishma Dev, they are actually explaining to us what is the adhikar to receiving the mercy of the Supreme Lord, which is uninterrupted and unmotivated devotional service to the Lord. Okay? So that's the adhikar. For us to receive the full mercy of the Lord, our devotion should be, every time we are always thinking of the Lord. Okay? Sometimes we are busy. In fact, Prabhupada used to say, most of the time we forget the Lord. Sometimes we remember the Lord, right? So pure devotees, they are constantly remembering the pastimes of the Lord, the names of the Lord, the activities of the Lord, the features of the Lord. Right? So that is what pure devotional service is all about. Unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service to the Lord. So that is the adhikar, or the right to receiving the mercy, the knowledge, etc. As you move on to Canto number 2, the Acharyas explain that Canto number 2 is about the truth or tattva. Right? It's about the truth or tattva. We actually saw in Canto number 2 the explanation of, the incarnations, etc. We saw all of that. But then the Acharyas also explained that if you look at the remaining 10 cantos, even including the first 2 canto, the 10 broad topics which the Bhagavatam covers are as follows. Okay, begins with Sarga, which is essentially the Lord is the primary force for the creation, right? So all the material universe is created. Why is it created? It is created to fulfill our desire for independence from the Lord, right? So the Lord then creates the ingredients for this, right? So we have learned there are 24 ingredients, right? So creation involves the basic elements and the senses totaling 24 principles, and all of this is initiated by Mahavishnu. Okay? or Karuna Dakshai Vishnu. We also discussed that, Lord Vishnu appears in three forms, right? So you have Karuna Dakshai Vishnu, and then from his pores, the individual universes appear. Within each universe, you have the Garbho Dakshai Vishnu. And then Garbho Dakshai Vishnu in turn expands into individual spirit souls in the atoms in every living entity. Right? So you'll realize that, okay, Garbho Dakshai Vishnu has Lakshmi Devi next to him. What does she do? She's massaging and serving Lord Vishnu, right? So within each universe, you will see Lord Vishnu, Sheshnath, and Mahalakshmi, right, serving him. But what about Mahavishnu or Garbho Dakshai Vishnu, who is the first source of the Vishnus? Do you see Lakshmi Devi with him? Actually, you do not, right? But Lakshmi Devi is there. She is within the Lord. Okay. So she's always with the Lord, sometimes within himself and sometimes outside serving the Lord. Okay. I never really thought about this before this until yesterday's class in Gita Reading Society, where Maharaj Ji was actually explaining this. Okay. So that's the first topic. The second topic is Visarga, which is essentially Lord Brahma being the secondary creator. The ingredients are already provided to him. And in the second canto, we also see how he gets into a conversation with Vishnu, right? Where the Lord explains to him, you are now empowered to create all the living entities in the universe, all the material objects, etc. So therefore, Brahma uses the original materials which were provided to create this huge diversity of life forms and configuration, right? Thereby, right, thereby giving all the living entities the independence which we wanted. Okay. Then comes Sthanam, or the maintenance and the planetary systems. So you see, the Lord is so amazing. You don't see two planets colliding into each other, right? Yeah, and then there's this concept of gravitational force, etc. So everything is actually emanated from the Lord. At the same time, while the Lord is producing all of this from his body, the Lord doesn't become lesser. So the Sri Ishopanishads, the first verse explains that while the Lord is producing more and more universes, more and more incarnations, right, more and more materials, the Lord still remains the same. Okay, so that's Sthanam, maintenance and the planetary system. The Lord therefore provides the suitable environment for the living entities to pursue their desires, right? And then we also learned that if you look at within each universe, you have the 14 planetary systems. We are in the center. Above us, you have the higher planetary systems, and below us, you have the lower planetary system. But that's still the material world. Even if we go to the highest planetary system, which is Brahma Loka or Satya Loka, it is still in the material realm, right? What's the meaning of in the material realm? It simply means that every living entity, whether you are in the lowest planet or the highest planet, death and birth happens again and again and again. The only way we can actually come out from this material sphere is if we can somehow upgrade ourselves with the mercy of the spiritual master, with the mercy of all the Vaishnavas, and therefore the mercy of Sri Krishna, right? We go into the spiritual realm. Right? The spiritual realm is a different realm altogether from the material world. And when we go there, then we serve the divine couple, Radha Krishna, or we serve in Vaikuntha Loka, right? Or we serve in one of those planets where the incarnations of the Lord exist, right? So that's Sthanam. Then you have Poshanam, Right? Poshanam is the protection and the mercy of the Lord. Can one of you just unmute yourself and maybe explain an account where the Lord came and, protected the devotee? We spoke about many.
Draupadi?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Uttara, Prabhuji. Uttara.
Wonderful. Uttara, yes.
Yes.
Very nice. Uttara.
Parishit Maharaj.
Exactly. Yeah. Uttara, Parikshit Maharaj. Yes, Parikshit Maharaj was actually also saved. You may wonder, but then he was asked to, he was cursed to die in 7 days and in 7 days. So then, what is the saving all about? What is the protection all about? The Lord actually protected his devotion, right? The material body will go, whether today or tomorrow, but the Lord protects the devotion also, right? In some cases, you see the Lord is coming and protecting the material body of the person, right? Allowing him to be protected from the miscreants. And in many cases, the Lord also just protects the devotion of the devotee, right? So Uttara, Parikshit Maharaj, there are so many other instances in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Lord Maharaj.
Lord Narsimha Dev, like protects in Prahlad Maharaj, and we're going to have,
Yes, yes.
Chaturdashi now.
Correct. So this Wednesday, coinciding with
the
Vesak Day, right, is Lord Narsingadev's appearance. So the Lord appears to protect his devotee, Prahlad Maharaj. So this Wednesday, Gita Reading Society will be having a major festival at Futsing. Is that correct, Anuj Prabhu? Futsing, huh?
Yes, Prabhuji. It's at Futsing.
Yeah. So it's at Kitchener Road, and Trivit Road, where my former school is. Former Victoria School used to be there. So it's just around there, not too far away from Mustafa, probably a 5-minute walk from there. So I will send you the details later, right? Who else was protected?
Prabhuji, Draupadi?
Yes, wonderful. Draupadi was also protected with unlimited amount of sari. Who else?
Arjuna, Prabhuji.
Arjuna was also protected. Yes, Arjuna was protected throughout the entire Mahabharat war. Once the war was over, he requested the Lord, okay, you, my chariot driver, you can now please disembark from the chariot and I will follow you, my Lord. The Lord said, no. You disembark first. And Arjuna agreed and he disembarked from the chariot. And once Arjuna left, the Lord walked over, right, accompanying him, and the entire chariot burst into flames. So the Lord actually told him that throughout the entire Mahabharat war, the Lord was actually protecting him. Okay. The Lord also protected his devotion by giving him the spiritual knowledge. One last try, anyone else?
Lord Vaman actually protected the earth.
Okay, very good. So in chapter number 3, we will also learn about Lord Varaha, right? Lord Varaha will protect earth from the nether regions, and then Vamanadev also protected. There was one Mataji, I could hear her saying something.
Gaja. That,
Exactly, yes. I was looking for this. Gajendra.
Gajendra, yeah.
Yes. So Gajendra, Lord Vishnu came and protected him, right? All he did was, somehow he remembered from his past life how the prayers he used to recite to the Lord, right? He just recited the Lord's prayers, and then he plucked the lotus from the stream, from the lake, and he offered it to the Lord. And the Lord actually, with his chakra, the Lord first cut the body of the crocodile, which was just biting Gajendra's foot. For thousands of years, Gajendra's family, his own individual strength, could not protect him from, from the clutches of the crocodile. Right? So the Lord came and cut off the crocodile. Then Gajendra was wondering, I was the one who actually called you. I called you, my Lord, right? Somehow, by coincidence, I remembered all the prayers which, I read out in my previous life. I just called you, and then you came. But you saved the crocodile first. How did the Lord save? Because the moment the crocodile was cut, the crocodile developed 4 hands and went back to the spiritual world. Okay. So Gajendra was like shocked. How come I prayed for you, but then you saved the crocodile first? Anyone remembers what was the reply by Lord Vishnu? Yes, yes. I heard something. Anyone would like to try? Why is it that the Lord, first protected the crocodile or delivered the crocodile before even blessing Gajendra? What was the reason?
Because Gajendra remembered Lord only because of crocodile.
Okay. Yes. Good. What else? The Lord is very merciful, right? So the crocodile was biting the feet of his devotee. All right. So it was like, taking the dust from the feet of the elephant, of Gajendra. And the Lord is so merciful. The Lord says that, wow, right? While my devotees reciting glories of my name, my form, my activities, etc., there's another devotee who is at the lotus feet of my devotee, right? Let me deliver him first. So that's the reason, right? Okay, so we spoke about Poshanam. Then there is the Uttayaha, right? Or the creative impetus. So essentially what happens is the false ego, right, is driving all the living entities to perform material activities. Together with these material activities, what happens? There is karma, right? So we learned in our classes that this karma will need to fructify. The moment the karma is fructified, that's when we receive, right? We receive the just fruits of our activities. And there are times when our karmas will bring us to the next life, and we may even need to actually, reap the results in the next few lifetimes, right? So it could be also that, because of the amazing charity which we have done, right, we are enjoying amazing results in this particular lifetime. And the moment the results are exhausted, right, then, life may change. Okay, so we need to be very, very careful and cognizant of how the law of karma actually works. Then Bhagavatam also speaks about Manvantara, or the change of the Manus. So Manus are the leaders, right? In fact, the word man comes from Manu, right? So they are the leaders who are providing guidance for material and spiritual well-being, setting an example and promoting righteousness Right? So all of this is actually covered in the Bhagavatam. We will move from one manvantra to another in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then, interestingly, comes Ishanukatha, right? Isha is the Lord, right? So the activities of the incarnation. So the Lord, Krishna, periodically he descends to impart eternal knowledge, right? So the Lord actually comes, right, to deliver his devotees back to the spiritual world, right? Sometimes Bhagavatam also explains, or Bhagavad Gita also explains that he comes to also eliminate evil, right, in the form of the Kurus. But more importantly, he could have easily done this, sitting in Vaikuntha, the Lord can actually do this, or sitting in Goloka Vrindavan, the Lord can do this. But he personally comes not only to re-establish dharma or spirituality, but more to engage with his devotees. Right? So his pastimes will inspire anyone who hears about these pastimes. So this Wednesday is Lord Narasinghdev's appearance day. All of us start with probably not having any devotion towards Lord Narasinghadev or Lord Krishna, etc. But how does the devotion come by? The devotion simply comes by hearing and being in the association of other devotees. Right? The Bhakti Lata Beach is already there in our heart. The moment we start hearing about Lord Narasinghadev, we start hearing about the pastimes, we read about the pastimes, we chant the Maha Mantra. That is where all these layers and layers and layers of our past activities, they become removed. And, the Lord allows us to enjoy this devotion. Okay. So this Ishanu Katha is very, very important, engaging in understanding, reading, hearing the activities of the incarnation. Why do we do all of this? It is just to basically to re-establish our devotion with the Supreme Lord. We have just forgotten this connection. Just by doing this, we are actually reconnecting ourselves back to the Lord. Then we have the universal dissolution or the Nirodha. Right? So during the cosmic dissolution, the living entities merge back into Mahavishnu. What are they doing? They're just waiting for the next creation. All right. So even at the end of dissolution, the living entities have their desire. They have their karma. So this karma and the desires will then bring them to the next body when Lord Vishnu is ready, right, for the next universal creation. Very scientific, very easy to understand. Then comes the concept of mukti, which is liberation, right? So the jnanis, right, and the Brahmavadis, what are they looking for? They are just wanting to merge into the Brahman effulgence, right? That's what their concept of mukti or liberation is all about. But the devotees, they are not looking at that. They are not even saying that we want to go back to the spiritual world. No, all they are saying is, oh Lord, let me come back as a devotee or be born in a devotee family so that I can always remember you, whether I am in the spiritual world or whether I am, in the material world. It doesn't really matter. As long as I can serve you, that's what the devotees are asking for. Okay. And then finally, Ashraya, or the supreme shelter, that is covered so nicely in Canto number 10. Just a minute, I need to switch off my WhatsApp. It's just making so much of noise. Okay. Anush Prabhu, can you see my slides?
Yes, Prabhuji, it's clear.
Okay. No, it's the full slide, no?
Yes, Prabhuji, the full slide I can see.
Oh, okay, wonderful. All right, so these are the 10 topics. Try to memorize this. It's quite straightforward, right? So Sarga, Visarga, we know. And then, you can use acronyms SPUM, then INMA. It's quite easy to remember. Okay. So that ends Canto number 2. And now we move on to Canto number 3. So Canto number 3 was actually going to start with the Padma Kalpa, which is essentially Sukadev Goswami explaining about this one day of Brahma. Okay. So Sukadev Goswami is explaining to Parikshit Maharaj, all right, what happens in this one day of Brahma. But, right, so we know about these nested conversations going on. Sukadev Goswami is speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, and then in this assembly, right, we have Sutta Goswami, who is also listening to this conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadev Goswami. So Sutta Goswami then, right, many years later, in the assembly of all sages, he explains the Bhagavatam, right? And the chief of all the sages is Shaunaka Rishi. So, at the conclusion of Canto number 2, while Sukadev Goswami was going to be explaining about what happens in this one day of Kalpa, right, or one day of Brahma, or the Padma Kalpa, any idea how long is this one day of Brahma? It's 4.32 billion years. Okay, that's like 12 days, 12 hours of Brahma's life, and then there's another 4.32 billion years of the night where the dissolution happens. Okay. So Sukadev Goswami is explaining this to Parikshit Maharaj, but Shaunaka Rishi, all right, he immediately asked Sutta Goswami, tell us about Vidura. Tell us about the conversation between Vidura and Uddhav. Okay, and therefore you will realize that, wow, Canto number 3 starts with a fresh new topic altogether. It doesn't really continue chronologically, from Canto number 2. Okay, so this is just based on the conversation between Shaunaka Rishi asking questions on behalf of all the sages to Sutta Goswami. So now let's move on to Canto number 3. Right? So great devotees, right? We know in the Bhagavad Gita as well as in Bhagavatam, this devotional service actually starts with Sambandha, right? And then Abhideya, and then finally Prayojana, right? Sambandha is where you build a relationship with the Lord, with the devotees. And then Abhideya is where, once you have built this relationship, what are the activities you engage in? So great devotees, once they have engaged in a relationship with another devotee or with the Supreme Person, with Krishna, then they try to converse, they try to have discussions, they try to narrate, they try to hear, they try to remember the Lord. That is what the activities are of devotees. Okay? Right? So there's this continuous discussions to understand the leelas, the magnanimity of the Supreme Lord, etc. And then finally, the prayojana is where, how is this perfected further? That's where the Lord will provide them the additional impetus and the additional intelligence to perfect their remembering the Supreme Lord. Okay? So similar is the case with Vidura and Uddhav. Right? So Vidura, right, he left the kingdom of Hastinapur. And then just before the start of the war, he left, and then he came back After many years, along the way, Vidura had gone to all the religious sites. Was it necessary for Vidura to actually go to all of that spiritual sites? Because let's not forget, Krishna was already there. Krishna was there present, right? Krishna was as a peace messenger coming and explaining to Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra to stop the possibility of the war. So Vidura knew Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? He could have just remained in the vicinity of Krishna, but somehow time make him go to different places and of pilgrimage. And the scriptures actually explain that Vidura, in all humility, he felt that because of my association with my brother Dhritarashtra and my association with his sons, you know, my devotional service is not in the mode of pure goodness, right? And how can I then receive Krishna? So better that I go and purify myself further and further, and then have the adhikar, all right, of being in the vicinity of Krishna. So that's what some acharyas say. Other acharyas also mention that this is just, you know, the orchestration by time that Vidura should leave. Okay. So when the two great devotees, Vidura and Uddhava, they meet, they naturally begin to discuss stories of Krishna, remembering the beloved Lord and his extraordinary pastimes inside and outside of Vrindavan. So now let's go to the first chapter of Canto number 3. Okay. So this is a quick summary of the 45 verses covered in the first chapter of Canto number 3, right? So essentially, when the Pandavas were repeatedly cheated and harassed by the Kauravas, Vidura had advised Dhritarashtra to return their legitimate share of the kingdom, right? But the blind brother and his son, you know, they categorically refused to entertain this idea. And what did they do? They sharply, you know, insulted the uncle. So Duryodhana sharply insulted the uncle Vidura, and then Vidura concluded that it was best that he leaves Hastinapur and embark on a pilgrimage. So while visiting numerous holy sites, Vidura heard the happy news that Pandavas had emerged victorious in the fratricidal war and had now rightfully gained the entire kingdom. So then Vidura reached the Yamuna and he meets Uddhav. And who is Uddhav? Uddhav is actually Krishna's cousin and his constant companion. He looks exactly like Krishna. In fact, the gopis were sometimes confused. Is this Krishna or is this Uddhava? So the moment Vidura meets Uddhava, he's so enthusiastic and excited. He begins to inquire about Krishna, inquires about his, you know, various family members and his great devotees like the Pandavas. Okay. So now we will get deeper into this conversation. But before that, anyone needs any more explanation on who is Vidura and who is Uddhava? Right? So Vidura is the uncle of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Right? Everyone knows this, huh? Good. And Uddhava, he's a great devotee of Krishna. He's also Krishna's cousin and his constant companion. Okay, so now let's move into this particular slides where we can actually see the summary of the entire chapter. Okay. So let me look at my guidebook also at the same time. So Sukadev Goswami spoke about Vidura renouncing home. We know why Vidura had left home, because he was insulted by his nephew. And we know that actually it was also orchestrated by time that he should leave. Okay. And the Pandava's house was actually considered by Lord Krishna as his own. And Krishna actually entered that house without any invitation. Okay. At the same time, he was always neglecting the house of Duryodhana. Right? So then Parikshit begins to inquire about this Vidura and Maitreya Samvada. Samvada means the discussion. Okay. So then there's a deeper discussion on the circumstances which led to Vidura's leaving his Hastinapur. We spoke about this, which is the atrocities of Dhritarashtra and his sons. And then Vidura tells Dhritarashtra that, please return the legitimate share to the Pandavas who had tolerated all your offenses, right? And you are fearful of the revengeful Bhima who is just breathing like a snake. Dear brother Dhritarashtra, don't forget that Krishna is on their side. And all the kings and the Yadus are also with Krishna. Okay. But Dhritarashtra argued, but my son Duryodhana will oppose this. Even if I want to give this kingdom back to the Pandavas, my son will oppose this. Then Vidura says, get rid of your son, right? Get rid of your son Duryodhana for the benefit of your family. Essentially, he is dosha, or he is offense personified. He's envious of Krishna, and he's the cause of all inauspiciousness. So disown your son. But it was not possible for Dhritarashtra to disown the son. Right? So while this conversation was going on, Duryodhana was privy to this. He heard this, and he immediately insulted Vidura. Right? So Vidura then left the palace, and he considered it as orchestration of time, Lord's Maya. At the same time, the acharyas also say that he felt he was not pure enough to be in the vicinity of Krishna. Okay. So how did Duryodhana insult Vidura? Bhagavatam explains that Duryodhana was swollen with anger and his lips were trembling, and he insulted Vidura. Right? And Vidura, let's not forget, he had really desirable qualities. And, these were esteemed by respectable people. And Duryodhana said this, who called this son of the maid servant or Dasi Putra here? He betrayed those upon whom he subsisted, and he spies in the enemy's interests. Drive him from the palace with only his breath. Right? So essentially, Dhritarashtra was saying, kick him out, maybe even beat him up so that he only leaves the palace with just the breath. And struck by sharp words, placing his bow on the door, Vidura left his brother's palace without being sorry. And he considers this the Lord's Maya. Okay. So then we move on. His travel to the pilgrimages, right? So to get higher pious credit, Vidura traveled to holy places where many deities were situated. He traveled alone, thinking only of Krishna in many places like cities, orchards, villages, where different deities of the Lord existed. And what were his qualities? Bhagavatam explains, he was pure He was independent in occupation. He was always satisfied. He was sleeping on the earth, and he was dressed as a mendicant or a sadhu or a abdut. All right. And he was not seen by his relatives. He was all alone. And he performed vows. Why do you perform vows? It was only to please Lord Hari or Hari Toshanam. So like this, Vidura started traveling throughout the entire world, and then he finally reached, okay, Prabhashetra. So Prabhashetra is where the Somnath temple is. If you go today to Somnath, that's where Prabhashetra is. At that time, Maharaj Yudhishthira gained control over the entire earth. At Prabhashetra, Vidura came to know that all his relatives had actually died. Just as an entire forest is burnt due to fire, right? And therefore he grieved and he silently proceeded west. And Vidura visited all the 11 places of pilgrimage on the banks of river Saraswati. He also visited many temples where the deity of Lord Vishnu was established by great souls. Then finally, passing through various provinces, Vidura finally reached the bank of the Yamuna, where he met Uddhav. Vidura affectionately embraced and hugged Uddhav, and he inquired as follows. Right? So at the bottom of the slide, you can see Vidura's inquiries from Uddhav about the welfare of the Yadus and the Kurus. He starts off by asking about how is Krishna and Balaram, right? How are the original personalities, Krishna and Balaram, who descended on the request of Lord Brahma, how are they doing in the house of Surasena? He then asks about the other Yadus. How is Vasudev? How is Pradyumna? How is Ugrasen, Samba, Yuyudhana, Akrura, Devaki, Anirudh, Hridika, Gada, and others? And then he asks about the Kurus. How are the Pandavas? How is Kunti, my sister-in-law? Right? And then he finally lamented again. I simply lament for my brother who drove me out, although I am his sincere well-wisher. But I'm happily traveling and not astonished at his action of Maya. Right? So sometimes we, just bewilder because of Maya. But he knew the Lord's greatness. Okay, that everything is actually orchestrated by the Lord. So you can see over here how Maya, in terms of Mahamaya, all right, is, clouding the vision of Duryodhana and his father. At the same time, Yoga Maya, right? Yoga Maya is orchestrating the life of Vidura. You see, Mahamaya and Yoga Maya. Right? We have already discussed this in our class. So although Lord Krishna is always willing to relieve the distress of surrendered devotees and saw the kings going astray by the three kinds of pride, which is they had the wealth, the education, and they had lots of followers, he refrained from personally killing the Kurus immediately. So what did the Lord do? The Lord just waited for all of them to be assembled on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. All right, the Lord just waited for all of them to be together on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and then he killed all of them at once. It's like a shortcut killing mission. And he made his devotee Arjuna the hero of the battle. So why should the Supreme Lord, full of knowledge and bliss, involve himself in the material world of sin and piety? sometimes we begin to understand, why does the Lord even come to this material world which is so full of sin and piety? So Bhagavatam in text number 44 explains the two reasons for the Lord's appearance. The unborn Lord takes birth to kill the wicked, as what we saw in the Mahabharat war. Right? And he also acts to attract all kinds of people, be it the karmis, the jnanis, or the bhaktas. So this is the two reasons why the Lord comes, as explained in Bhagavatam. Otherwise, why would the transcendental Lord come to earth? Even his pure devotee has no connection with material body. He is not like ordinary living entity who is forced to take birth by karma. Okay, so the Lord is not coming because of karma. In fact, not even the Pandavas or Queen Kunti, they went through so much of difficulties. It is not because of karma. They are just the associates of the Supreme Lord who came together, right, to the material world for the Lord to enact his drama. So the Lord mercifully appeared in the family of the Yadus to show mercy to the surrendered rulers. Therefore, please chant the glories of the Lord who is glorified in this Tirtha. Okay. So the Lord descended to attract all and, very importantly, to show the mercy to his devotees. So that ends the first chapter of Canto number 3. Any questions?
Video.
Yes, Prabhu, please continue. I couldn't hear you, Prabhu.
No, we are all fine. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So that's the first chapter. Now we move on to the second chapter, which is remembrance of Krishna. Right? So Vidura begins to ask Uddhava, after hugging him, Vidura begins to ask him, how is Krishna? Tell me about, the pastimes of Krishna. And then Uddhav gets into a trance for one Mahurat. Remember, we discussed in our class, for one Mahurat, which is 48 minutes, Uddhav is in a state of shock, in a trance, right? Because of his intense feeling of separation when he remembered his beloved Lord Krishna, right? Uddhav had served Krishna throughout his entire life, and now Krishna had left the planet. Because of Krishna's leaving the planet, there was extreme misfortune. Right? So when Vidura asked Uddhav, tell me about Krishna, tell me about the disappearance of Krishna, Uddhav could not speak about this. In fact, what Uddhav decided to do was, spontaneously he spoke about Krishna's appearance, right? His playful activities in the land of Vrindavan and the celebrated lifting of Govardhan Hill. Right? So that was the exalted position of Uddhav. Right? So much in love with the Lord, so much in service of the Lord. In fact, the Lord told him, Uddhav was saying, everyone is going back to the spiritual world. Right? You had orchestrated, oh Lord, you orchestrated so that they will fight, right? All the associates who came from the spiritual world, that they will fight at Prabhas Kshetra. They will kill themselves after getting drunk, and all will go back to the spiritual world. You wanted all of this to happen. But when I asked you, can I also come along? You did not allow me to do it. Right? So he was in this feelings of separation from the Lord. Can anyone remember why did the Lord not allow him to go back to the spiritual world immediately. Krishna had a mission for Uddhav. Anyone just unmute yourself?
So Krishna wanted to spread the Bhagavatam, to his devotees. So he told Uddhav to actually go to the ashram, to
Okay, very good. Yeah,
to the Badrika ashram.
that's right. Yes. So Krishna had actually, in his pastimes, he went to all of many places from Dwarka. Of course, he was in Vrindavan. He went to many other places, but he could not go to Badrika ashram. And therefore, the sadhus in Badrika ashram were just waiting for Krishna. And therefore, Uddhav was given this mission. Then you go to Badrika ashram and you be there with the sadhus and you explain about my life, about me, about my activities, about my glories, all right? And my leelas to all of these sadhus. But before that, right, Vidura will also be coming. Vidura will also ask you, you have to calm him down. You have to, express my love for Vidura. And therefore, you need to remain here. While the remaining associates have all gone back to the spiritual world, you are tasked with this mission. Okay? So that was Uddhav's exalted position. And then we also learn about the unfortunate situation of the Yadus and others at Prabhashetra. We spoke about this moments ago, right? So the unfortunate situation of the Yadus and others. So Krishna had said, and our house had been swallowed by the snake of time. Uddhava says, how can I speak about our welfare? The universe is most unfortunate and the Yadus even more unfortunate as they could not identify Krishna as the personality of Godhead. Okay, just as the fish considers moon as one amongst them or something illuminating and nothing more. All right, so the fishes, what do? They consider that both they, the fishes, and the moon took birth from the ocean, and therefore they feel that, oh, the moon is just like within us, right? So sometimes, for us to appreciate a scenario or a context better, we need to come out of our frame. When you are too much into the frame, you can't actually see it with the right vision. We need to sometimes come out of a particular frame, right? So, yeah, so this is what Uddhav is telling to Vidura. The universe is most unfortunate. Although the Yadus were highly learned and experts in psychic study, they could understand the Lord only partially. Right? So they understood the Lord as just Paramatma and not as Bhagavan. But still, they are glorious because they had the opportunity to associate with the Lord and also to serve Him. Such devotees are different from atheistic people. So that was the unfortunate situation of the Yadus and others. The Lord was there, but they always felt that the Lord is like the Paramatma in their hearts. They did not see Him as the supreme, supermost Bhagavan. Okay. So the Lord then manifested His eternal form and removed it from the sight of those who have not executed required penances or tapasya. Right? So that's what the Lord did, and that's what actually happened to the Yadus also. Then Uddhav remembers the attractive features of the Lord. And he starts explaining this. Okay. He tells Vidura, you have directly witnessed the great auspiciousness of Krishna. All the demigods assembled at the Rajasuya Yajna concluded that the auspicious beauty of Krishna surpassed the dexterity of Brahma in creating beautiful objects. Yeah? So just remember, whenever we see anything beautiful, just remember that, wow, if this is so beautiful, the creation of Brahma, can you imagine how beautiful the Lord is himself? But the attraction, all the demigods assembled, concluded, the auspicious beauty of Krishna surpassed the creation of Brahma. But the attraction of the gopis is superior to that of the demigods. And therefore, Uddhav speaks it out of his own experience in Vraja, having seen their love. Right? So Krishna actually says, greater than me is my devotee. And amongst all the devotees, the greatest are the gopis. Right? Because they had sacrificed their lives just for Krishna. The gopis, after their pastimes with Krishna, they were anguished when he left them. They used to follow him with their eyes. They sat down with their intelligence stunned, and they couldn't finish their household duties. So although the Lord is unborn, he compassionately appears along with his Mahat or Mahavishnu, who creates the Mahatattva, and Amsas like Matsya and Kurma, when his peaceful devotees like Vasudev are harassed by non-devotees. So the Lord comes, right? That's his mercy. Right? And these activities are all bewildering. And sometimes they can be contradictory too. For example, when Putana tried to kill Krishna, Krishna saved her and brought her back to the spiritual world. Right? So this is all bewildering to everyone. He's the Supreme Lord. At the same time, he lived in Vraja out of fear of the enemy. Although he's all-powerful, he also fled Mathura. Right? And the Lord begged pardon from his parents for his inability to serve them due to the fear of Kamsa. And all of this behavior really pains Uddhav's heart. He's the Lord, but at the same time, he's behaving like a mere mortal. Who, after smelling the dust of the lotus feet of Krishna, even once, could ever forget it? Simply by raising his eyebrows, we spoke about the eyebrows of Krishna in the last class, he was able to reduce the burden on earth. So therefore, Uddhav is now remembering the magnanimity of the Lord, who is so merciful, he is even merciful to the enemies. Okay, so from verses 19, 20, and also verse 23, Uddhav then explains to Vidura how merciful the Lord is even to his enemy. We know that how merciful he was to all the demons who were killed, but who actually went back to the spiritual world. The mercy was also given to Sisupal. The Lord tolerated, who can tolerate separation from all merciful Lord Krishna, who even gave envious Sisupal liberation, which was aspired by the yogis. Right? So Sisupal, had kept on blaspheming Krishna many, many times. And Krishna warned him, right? I'll forgive you until the 99th time. And after that, I will kill you. Right? Even after killing him, Sisupal went back to the spiritual world. Right? So others on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, all of them who were killed, they attained Krishna's abode by being purified by the arrows of Arjuna and drinking with their eyes the lotus face of Krishna. Okay, so that's how the Lord is so merciful. And Uddhav then explains, right, the unparalleled qualities of Krishna. He starts off by saying that no one is equal or can be superior to Krishna. And the Lord is Triya Disha, meaning that he's the master of all kinds of three. The three principal potencies, right? The three pairs of opulences, the three Purusha avatars, the three Guna avatars, the three modes of material nature, and the three worlds. Right? So the Lord is the master of all kinds of threes. And the Lord is supremely independent, and all his desires are fulfilled as he's the husband of the goddess of fortune. And the Lord is worshipped by eternal maintainers of the creation with various paraphernalia. And finally, his feet are honored by millions of helmets that touch them. So, you know, if you go to the spiritual world, which you all of you will one fine day, you will see that everyone is clad, right, just like Krishna, and everyone has, like Vishnu, and everyone has a nice helmet, a crown, and all of them are actually paying obeisances to Krishna. So while narrating all of this to Vidura, Uddhav is, you know, really reminiscing the entire association which he had with Krishna. Right? So it is painful to remember the Lord. Right? It's just so painful to remember the Lord. At the same time, it is also glorious to remember the Lord. Then in verse number 23, Uddhav explains, mercy was even given to Putana. Krishna gave the position of motherly nurse to the envious and unfaithful Putana, who came to kill him with her poisoned breasts. How shall I take shelter? One more merciful than him. Aho bakiyam stana kala tutam. I consider the demons to be devotees, because while fighting in enmity, they are absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord in anger. And while dying, they are able to see the Lord on Garuda with chakra. So let's take a pause here. Let me end the slideshow. Just a minute. Can't see the Zoom here.
You are on the Zoom, Prabhuji.
Yeah, I can't see myself. That's the reason. Just a minute. Okay, just a minute. I got it now.
I think you're using one as PK account, one is called Pradeep. They both are online on the Zoom.
Yes, yes. Pradeep is another devotee, Shalini's husband. And PK is myself. Okay, doesn't matter. So, stop sharing. Okay, now I got it. Yeah. Okay, so, hey, Hare Krishna. Mataji, nice to see you. Ankur's mother, Hare Krishna. You are in Singapore, Mataji? Yes, na? She's in Singapore, na? Okay, good, good, good. Okay. So, I was saying that so even Ravan was continuously thinking of Ram, and Kans was also thinking of Krishna always, right? Shishupal was also always thinking of Krishna, and so is that devotional service? What do you think, Shalini Mataji?
Prabhuji, no, Prabhuji, that is not we talked in the class, intentions are also most important.
Okay,
Yeah,
very good, very good. Yeah. So the key word is favorable.
favorable.
Yeah. Has to be
Favorable.
favorable. Yes. Devotional service has to be favorable. Very good. Right. So if you look at Ram, if you look at the incidents of Ravan, he was always thinking of Krishna, Ram. And at the end of life, he went back to the spiritual world too. Yeah. But that is, it is an orchestration by the Lord. But for us, yeah, we need to ensure that our activities are favorable to the Lord. Then it is counted as devotional service. Okay. All right. And yeah, so that's that brings us to the final part of Canto number 2, which is the pastimes in Braja. Sorry, final the pastimes in Braja of Krishna. These are in the final parts. Okay, so Manoj Prabhu said it's not a devotional service per se. Yes, very good. Yeah. So the reason why they went back to the spiritual world was they were having the sight of Ram or Krishna, and at the same time they were remembering the Lord. That's a good point, Prabhu. Okay, so if you look at the final verses in this particular chapter, Krishna was born to Vasudeva and Devaki at the request of Brahma for the welfare of the earth. Out of fear of Kamsa, Vasudeva brought Krishna to Vrindavan, where the Lord stayed with Balaram for 11 years, like a covered flame. Okay. Krishna performed pastimes in Vraja's beautiful forests and on the banks of Yamuna in the association of cowherd boys and cows. And then Uddhav continues to explain that Lord Krishna displayed the activities of a child to the Vrajavasis. And when the demons attacked, he appeared as if struck with wonder, but he killed them like a lion cub or a balasimha. While he was herding the cows and the bulls, Krishna, the reservoir of all opulences, played on his wonderful flute, and he enlivened the Gopas. In the course of his pastimes, Krishna casually killed all the Kama Rupi demons sent by Kamsa as easily as a child breaks dolls. Uddhav then continues again. The Lord chastised and drove away Kaliya and made the cows drink the poison-free Yamuna waters. Right? So he explains the Kaliya how the Kaliya Patnis, they were praying to Krishna to please, leave their husband. And then Krishna desired to utilize Nanda Maharaj's wealth for worshipping the cows and thus gave a lesson to Indra by stopping Indra Puja. All right, so we learned this in the Govardhan Puja. When Indra poured water incessantly on Vrindavan, the compassionate Lord saved the Vrajavasis by lifting Govardhan like an umbrella. And finally, Krishna performed Ras Leela pastimes as the central beauty of the assembly of women by attracting the gopis with his flute in the moonlit autumn light. So that concludes chapter number 2 of Canto number 3. Any questions? Fairly straightforward. For those of you who have already done this, I know it's a repeat class, but it's always good to listen to the Bhagavatam. So this Wednesday is Lord Narsimhdev's appearance day. The Lord appeared just to please Prahlad Maharaj, his devotee Prahlad Maharaj. Right? We know that the Lord appeared from a pillar. Right? And Prabhupada says that, the palace of Hiranyakashipu, or the father of Prahlad, was in Multan in Pakistan. Okay. At the same time, In the scriptures, it's also explained that it's in Ahobilam in South India. So, which means that the Lord comes in different millenniums. Again and again, the Lord comes again and again and again. In one Mahayuga, Lord Nrsimhadev comes once, right? Krishna comes once, Balaram comes once, etc. So this could be in a different Mahayuga. Lord Nrsimhadev appeared in Multan. And in another Mahayuga, the Lord appeared in Ahobilam. So Venkatraman Prabhu and who else is here? Shamugam Prabhu, have you been to Ahobilam?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Heaven Prabhu, planning Prabhu.
Okay, okay. Please take me along when you are going.
Sure Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Okay, yeah. It's it's like it'll take you about 1 day of hiking, and then you can finally reach there. It's a really amazing place. Along the way, you will see different temples of Lord Nrsimhadev. If you go to Hampi, you will see Yoga Nrsimha. The Lord is actually in a meditative pose. Huge deity in Hampi of Lord Nrsimhadev. So we pray to Lord Nrsimhadev to protect our devotion. Okay. And, normally in North India, in even Lakshminarayan temple or, in many parts of North India, I was just discussing this with Anush Prabhu, you don't see very often the deity of Lord Nrsimhadev. Only in South India, many of them are, worshippers of Lord Nrsimhadev. So although the Lord looks so fearful, right, so fearful, not the Lord is fearful, he looks very, he brings fear in the hearts of people. But to the devotee, the devotee sees Lord Nrsimhadev as, the most protective, the most loving. In fact, yesterday when we heard the class by Maharaj, he explained that in Mayapur, Auntie Satya, I think you must have seen, Lalita also you must have seen, the Lord Nrsimhadev is at the side, and then you have Krishna and the Astasakhis with Radharani on the main altar. But because Nrsimhadev is next to the deity, right, is in the same vicinity of the temple, Lord Nrsimhadev then takes, right, the bhav or the potency of the main deity of Radha and Krishna. And therefore, Lord Nrsimhadev is like, very, very, very loving to the devotees. Although he looks fearful, but the Lord is very, very, very merciful to all of us. Right? So we know of the story of how Hiranyakashipu, right? He felt just because he got the boon from Brahmaji that no one could kill him, no animal could kill him, no human could kill him. He could not die at night, nor could he die in the daylight. He could not die inside, nor could he die outside. So like this, he got all of that special boons, except the boon of immortality. And he felt that, okay, I've already done all my homework well. It's like nicely giving me full protection, and therefore I do not need to worry. And therefore he declared himself as God. But his son, who was living in the Gurukul, he knew that my father is not Lord, and the Lord is, Supreme Vishnu. And therefore, although the father wanted him to treat him as God and to learn all the mundane topics, Prahlad Maharaj was spontaneous in actually teaching all his classmates about devotional service. But where did he get, these learnings from? Where did the knowledge come from? Prahlad Maharaj was just a 5-year-old boy. Where did he get all of this knowledge from?
His past life, which was coming for him, like what was remaining. So in the another life, next life also, he is carrying that bhakti, and I think so.
Okay. Actually, good point. But actually, it was this life when he was in his mother's womb. He heard the entire pastimes of the Lord. I think Narada Muni was actually giving him, explaining the entire Bhagavatam to his mother, right? So therefore, he heard the entire pastimes, Leela, activities of the Supreme Lord, and therefore he was, even as a unborn child, he was fully convinced of who the Supreme Lord is. And therefore, that knowledge which he had in his mother's womb, he continued to share this with others. Right? And then, the father one day called him up and asked him, who is the greatest? He says, Lord Vishnu. The father was very angry. And then the aunt said, let us teach him a lesson, So the father threw him from the top of the cliff. Prahlad Maharaj was saved. And then the father put him into a room full of venomous snakes. They are all the servants of Sheshnath, right? So they never disturbed Prahlad Maharaj. And then the father put him, in the assembly of this ferocious elephants. But none of them trembled on Prahlad Maharaj. And then his aunt, who could walk into fire and not be killed, she told the brother, let me do this. I'll hold him, and then let there be a fire, a bonfire, and he will get a taste of his medicine. He will die, but the Lord protected him. And the aunt actually died, and therefore we celebrate Holi, right? And then finally, the father was so furious and demanded that he tell him, Prahlad tell him, where is the Lord? You always say the Lord is everywhere. Is he in this pillar? Yes. He says, yes, the Lord is in the pillar if he so wishes. And then, Hiranyakashipu took out his sword and hit the pillar, and then there came out Lord Narasimhadev. And Lord Narasimhadev, the way he was playing with Hiranyakashipu is just like how a cat, have you seen how a cat plays with a mice before the mice is, finally killed, right? So this is what he was doing. And finally, the Lord placed him on top of his thighs, right? And then tore open his abdomen and garlanded himself with the intestines of Hiranyakashipu, all right? The Lord appeared exactly at twilight, not in the daytime, not at the nighttime. The Lord killed him, not outside the house, not inside of the house, but at the veranda, right? And the Lord killed him. It was not a man who killed him, not an animal, but a half man, half lion who killed him, right? So let's not, let's have that full conviction of the Lord's mercy, right? But of course, there are many devotees who, while they were doing devotional service, etc., they were killed. Right? We may ask, why was the Lord not there to help them? Right? So once again, we need to remember that the Lord protects our devotion, protects our soul. Right? It's not necessary that He protects the material body. Right? So with that, it's 10:30, and we conclude our class. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Right? Any questions? Any realizations anyone would like to share? No? Okay. So then we will meet next week.
Very nicely you summarized the Canto 1 and Canto 2, Prabhuji, in like 10-15 minutes. So it was very nice to take notes.
Yeah, chapter 1 and chapter 2.
I'm going to finish reading, but I'll go in on.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. So I'll see you all next week again. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram.
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you
Hare
very
Krishna,
much.
Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna,
Padmalochan Prabhuji ki
Thank you,
jai.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Bye bye.